The Upper Harz Water Regale is a system of dams, reservoirs, ditches and other structures, much of which was built from the 16th to 19th centuries to divert and store the water that drove the water wheels of the mines in the Upper Harz region of Germany. The term regale here refers to the granting of royal privileges or rights, in this case to permit the use of water for mining operations in the Harz Mountains of Germany. The Upper Harz Water Regale is one of the largest and most important historic mining water management systems in the world. The facilities developed for the generation of water power have been placed under protection since 1978 as cultural monuments. The majority are still used, albeit nowadays the purpose is primarily to support rural conservation, nature conservation, tourism and swimming. From a water management perspective, several of the reservoirs still play a role in flood protection and the supply of drinking water. On the 31st of July 2010, the Regale was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site affiliated with the mines of Rammelsburg and the historic town of Goslar. The water system covers an area of roughly 200 square kilometers within the Lower Saxon part of the Harz, the majority of structures being found in the vicinity of Clausthal-Saalfeld, Harnenklee, Sankt Andreasberg, Buntenbock, Wildermann, Lautenthal, Schulenburg, Altena and Torfhaus. The water regale in this context means a royal prerogative. Through the so-called Bergregel, or mining rights, the monarch granted the right to mine and, through the Wasserregel, he granted the right to use local water supplies for the purpose of mining. Other water users, particularly mill owners, had a lower priority. This water regale, or right to use water, was part of the overall Bergfreiheit to mining rights that were valid in Lower Saxony until the 1960s. In German, the term Oberharzer Wasserwirtschaft has also been frequently used to refer to these historic facilities, but this is not precise enough, because in the last 100 years an intensive, modern water management system has been put in place in the Upper Harz in the form of a number of new dams and their associated structures and ditches. The Upper Harz mining industry. The Upper Harz was once one of the most important mining regions in Germany. The major products of its mines were silver, copper, lead, iron and, from the 19th century, zinc as well. The main source of income, however, was silver. For the 16th to the middle of the 19th centuries, about 40 to 50% of the entire German silver production originated in the Upper Harz. The taxes raised from this contributed significantly to the revenue of the royal houses in Hanover and Brunswick-Wolfenbüttel and helped to secure the positions of power and influence within the Holy Roman Empire. Its lucrativeness justified a high commitment in terms of investment and effort. Hereby the Upper Harz mining industry produced a considerable number of innovations and inventions, including such important advances as the man engine, the water column engine and the wire cable. Mining and water mining becomes a very energy-intensive activity as soon as excavation extends any significant distance underground. In the Upper Harz, vein mining was the main form of extraction, with excavation following the near-vertical loads straight down into the earth. Only a few meters down, the ingress of water increased the difficulty of excavation considerably. Initially it was mopped up using men standing on ladders, the so-called Wasserknechten, with their leather buckets. Later, the introduction of horses and whims enabled larger quantities of water to be lifted, but horses were expensive and had to be changed every few hours. As a result, mines, particularly the richer, deeper ones, started to use hydropower systems, able to work continuously, 24 hours a day. To do this, streams were diverted onto water wheels that drove reciprocating pumps in order to raise water from greater depths and in greater quantities. The principle was to raise water with water. To operate these water wheels, a continuous and substantial supply of water was needed. Although the Upper Harz, with an annual precipitation of over 1,300 mm per year, received copious amounts of water, the mines often lay high up in the mountains close to the watersheds where there were only a few streams of any size. In addition, the flow of mountain streams in the rocky terrain was very variable. It often only needed a few weeks of low rainfall for the water supply to the mines to be threatened. This led to several mines having to be closed. In the heyday, the mines of the Upper Harz were among the deepest in the world. For example, as early as 1700, shaft depths of 300 meters were exceeded, and around 1830, a depth of 600 meters was attained. This was now so deep that the mine was actually below sea level, something which was considered significant at the time. Deep shafts, however, demanded correspondingly high levels of energy to lift ore and pit water. This high energy consumption, combined with the heavy demand for water, led to even more strenuous attempts to develop the available water power. The miners usually built new water structures in those periods when no ore could be extracted due to the lack of water to power the wheels. When the water wheels stopped running, the underground water that ingressed the mine could no longer be removed. The mine drowned and the miners were driven out. During these phases, work concentrated on upgrading the facilities of the Upper Harz Water Regale, water diversion and storage elements. In all, 143 dammed ponds, 500 kilometers of ditch and 30 kilometers of tunnel were built for the collection, diversion and storage of the surface runoff water in the Upper Harz. In addition, about 100 kilometers of drainage adits are included as part of the regale. These facilities were not, however, all in operation at the same time. The Wasserwerke today operates and maintains 65 dammed ponds, 70 kilometers of ditch and 20 kilometers of tunnel. Several smaller dammed ponds still belong to the Lower Saxon State Forestry Department or are even in private hands. The principle of water diversion is to collect the water in ditches, running almost parallel to the contours of the slope, and to divert it to the mining areas. These supply channels can easily be 10 or more kilometers long. Sometimes the water collected was not fed directly to the water wheels, but into large artificial, dammed ponds which acted as reservoirs, in order to ensure enough water was available for the wheels even in times of drought. For the bottom outlets of these ponds, the water could be led into a ditch system in order to power the water wheels. Usually several wheels were arranged one after another, like a cascade, so that the water could be used to drive more than one wheel. In order to lead the water over as many wheels as possible, it had to be collected, stored and routed around at the highest possible elevation. The technology of the time did not enable dams to be built with heights of more than about 15 meters. This meant that many small ponds had to be laid out rather than a few larger ones. By arranging the ponds in a cascade, water could be retained at a high elevation in order to drive as many water wheels as possible. A number of these pond cascades were built, comprising 4 to 6 ponds. The majority of water wheels were used to drive pumps. Occasionally, the power they generated had to be transmitted over several hundred meters to the mine itself using flat rods. Important mines also had a reciprocal water wheel which was used to provide power for transporting the ore and the material to be crushed. All water wheels were of the overshot type. Apart from a few reconstructions, the water wheels all disappeared during the last century. Structures. Reservoirs. The 143 reservoirs or storage ponds, known as tesh, were impounded using earth-fill dams. Dam heights varied between 4.0 and 15.0 meters. Impoundment volumes were, on average, about 150,000 cubic meters. Ditches. The ditches are supply channels almost parallel to the terrain contours, with a very slight incline of around 1 to 2 per mil and are accompanied by an inspection path. Tunnels. The underground water tunnels of between 20 and 1,000 meters long were the most expensive investments in the Upper Harz Water Regale. They were worth the cost, however, because of the low operating costs and high hydraulic capacity. Special structures. The Spurbeheide dike is an aqueduct built from 1732 to 1734 with a length of over 900 meters and a height of 16 meters. The odotage differs considerably from the other Upper Harz ponds with regard to its construction materials and dimensions. Following its completion in 1722 to the start of the modern dam building period in 1892, it was the largest dam in Germany. In the Polsterberg pump house, water could be pumped from the dam ditch to a height of 8 meters using hydropower. The Huttler Widerwash is also frequently mentioned in this connection. It is quite complex and enables water to flow in 2 different directions. Tourism. Due to the sheer number of structures and the length of the ditches, the Upper Harz Water Regale is best explored on foot. Thanks to the Harzwasserwerke, a large number of waterside footpaths have been created in recent years, the so-called Wasserwanderwege. Visitors can get to know about the typical elements that make up the Upper Harz Water Regale by means of information boards along the clearly marked routes. With a few exceptions, most of the ponds can be used by swimmers during the summer months. The majority are also leased to local angling clubs. History. Construction. Mining activity in the Harz goes back to the 10th and 11th centuries. The first water wheels in the Harz were erected in the 13th century in the Pandelbach Valley southeast of Zeesen. At the time, mining, including this early use of the so-called waterworks for the mines, was managed by the Cistercian abbey at Warkenry. The Black Death in the Middle Ages depopulated the Harz to a great extent and almost brought mining operations to a standstill. Another factor was probably that mining had reached its technical limits at the time, with depths of up to about 60 meters. A clear recovery followed from about 1520 onwards, initially at the instigation of the Duke of Brunswick-Wolfenbüttel, Henry the Younger, but it was his son, Julius, Duke of Brunswick-Lüneburg, who gave added impetus to existing mining operations in the Upper Harz and initiated the creation of a large number of ponds and ditches. It was the extensive use of hydropower that made the mining boom in the Upper Harz possible. As the mines became ever deeper over time, they needed more and more energy. The lack of water following months of little rain or long periods of frost were time and again a limiting factor for the mines. The expansion of the water system was achieved by raising the existing pond dams, building new dams, laying new ditches and extending existing ditch runs. Further improvements, water tunnels and drainage adits. One example of the expansion of the water regale network was the optimization of several ditch courses, mainly during the 19th century, by the construction of so-called Wasserlaufene water tunnels. These enabled the distance traveled by the water to be significantly shortened. It also guaranteed winter working, because the water running underground did not freeze up. In addition, addition, the maintenance cost of a short section of tunnel was much cheaper than that of a long ditch run, but a particularly important advantage was the higher discharge capacity. The tunnels descended the same height difference over a shorter distance and therefore had steeper incline. Initially, the underground sections were laboriously hewn out with hammer and chisel. Later, gunpowder was used as an explosive, making the construction of water tunnels considerably easier and faster, because most of the energy was needed to drain the mines of water and because the need for that continued to grow as mines became deeper. There were attempts early on to dewater mines using drainage adducts. This entailed driving tunnels from the mines to the valleys, through which water could drain away under gravity. The deeper the level of drainage, the longer the adduct had to be. The longest of these tunnels is the Ernst August adduct, built in the mid-19th century, which is 35 kilometers long. It collected water from the mines in Boxwies, Lautental, Zillerfeld, Clausthal and Wildermann and led it to Gittel.The on the edge of the Harz heyday and decline. About 80 to 90% of the ponds in the Upper Harz Water Regale were created in the 16th and 17th centuries, whilst the system of dam ditches was further expanded in the 19th century. These structures contributed significantly to the Harz becoming the largest industrial region of Germany in the early modern period. The invention of the steam engine and the discovery of electrical energy did not immediately change the use of hydropower. These other forms of energy were introduced relatively gradually in the Upper Harz. Of course, with the introduction of the steam engine, the difficulties of acquiring coal in sufficient quantities was also a factor until the construction of the Innest Valley Railway. With the nationalization of the mines on 1 January 1864 by the Kingdom of Hanover, not only did mining rights now transfer to the state, but also the rights to water usage. So the Kingdom of Hanover also claimed the water regale, which was first legally defined in the Prussian Water Law of 1913 in sections 16 and 381. Following the absorption of the Kingdom of Hanover into the Kingdom of Prussia, the Royal Prussian Mining Inspectorate and, later, Priesag took over the operation of mines in the Upper Harz. An inventory dating to the year 1868 reveals that a total of 198 water wheels of various diameters and a total capacity of about 3,000 horsepower were driven by the Upper Harz Water Regale. Around 1900, mining shaft depths of 1,000 meters were attained, but the cost of mining at greater and greater depths continued to rise. At the same time, the industry had to compete with other metal mining areas at home and abroad in an era of improving transportation, overexploitation during the First World War and plummeting metal prices during the Great Depression caused, at its peak, a great wave of closures. As large mines in Clausthal, Zillerfeld, Boxwies and Lautental had to shut down. In Bad Grund, however, mining in the Upper Harz continued until 1992, but it only needed to use a small fraction of the facilities of the Upper Harz Water Regale. Hydroelectric power. Following the demise of the mining industry in 1930, water from the Upper Harz Water Regale was switched to generating electricity, some new structures being built as a result. The generation of electricity was carried out by Priesag until 1980 in the Kaiser Wilhelm and Ottilie mines. These hydropower stations were closed in the early 1980s when water rights had expired and the profitability of power stations steadily declined. Against a background of sharply increasing wages and stagnating energy prices, nevertheless, in St. Andreasberg the water of the Odertage transferred along the Rehberg ditch is still used to generate electricity today. In addition to the Tichtal and Grundstrasse power stations. There are two stations in the Samson Pit, the Grüner Hirsch power station at a depth of 130 meters and the Siebestollen power station at 190 meters. The Water Regale today. Following the closure of power stations, the facilities of the Water Regale were initially transferred to the Lower Saxony State Forestry Department, which maintained them through the Clausthal-Schulenburg Forestry Office at the cost of much labor and money. In order to relieve the state purse, in 1991 the Harz Wasserwerke was given the task of operating and maintaining 65 reservoirs, 70 kilometers of ditch and 20 kilometers of water tunnel. The Harz Wasserwerke has delegated the management of the Upper Harz Water Regale to its Clausthal office. No public money is spent. The cost of maintenance, a seven-figure sum annually, has to be borne by the Harz Wasserwerke through its sale of drinking water. In addition to the facilities entrusted to the Harz Wasserwerke, there is a large number of dam ruins, tunnel entrances and several hundreds of kilometers of ditches that are not maintained. These structures enjoy the status of a so-called passive protected monument. That means that they are like the ruins of castles, subject to very gradual decay, but which may not be destroyed by modern measures without legal permission under conservation law. The Hirschler Pond is used by the public utilities of Clausthal-Zellefeld to supply drinking water to Clausthal-Zellefeld and Altenau. Similarly, Zellefeld uses the Upper and Middle Kellerhals ponds. Harnenklee gets its drinking water from the Auerhahn Pond, the New Grumbach Pond and the Upper Kellerhals Pond. Similar systems. There are similar water supply systems in the historic silver mining region near Freiburg in Saxony, in Norwegian Kongsberg, in Skemnitz and in Sweden, and records show that there was a regular exchange of experience and know-how between these regions. Nevertheless, the Upper Harz Water Regale is the largest and most interconnected system of its kind in Europe, with significantly more dams and ditches as well as larger structures than all its counterparts elsewhere.